Doctors, picture this. You walk into your practice on Monday morning, you look at the schedule, there's nobody on it. Nobody's called, nobody's coming in the door. How does that make you feel? Hi, everybody. Welcome to the KC CHIROpulse Podcast, brought to you by CATS Consultants and Chiro Health USA. I am your host, Dr. Michael Perusich, and I'm joined by my co-host today, Marisa, Mateja. I almost said doctor because usually you are a doctor.
Oh, I only play one on TV.
I work on GB.
How are you?
That really almost slipped out of there. I'm great. Thanks for being here today. Okay, so you and I banter this all the time. What does it feel like when you look at your schedule and there's nobody on it?
It's a little scary, right?
Should be.
Should be scary.
Should be. But unfortunately, we see doctors doing this all the time. They're not scheduling their patients. They're telling their patients what? Nails on a chalkboard. Come back when you need to.
Yeah.
Because every patient has this inborn innate ability to know when their next chiropractic visit should be, not the doctor.
Right. I think that's always,
Right.
I think that's always the funniest concept is come back when you need me. When is that? I don't know when I need you as a patient. If you're not telling me or directing me or leading me to what the best route is, I have no idea. It may be 5 years from now before I come back.
Right.
The patients just don't know. It's a bad scenario to get into.
It's terrible. Okay, so we're going to take a really short break here, hear word from our sponsor, but here's what we're doing today. We're diving into this idea of what does it feel like to have an empty schedule. So doctors, while we're on break, I want you to listen to our sponsors, but while we're on break, real quick, look and see how far out are your patients booked. We'll be right back.
In today's economy, every dollar counts. Families are facing tough choices, having to reconsider what was once essential to them. But when it comes to healthcare, no one should have to compromise on their well-being because of financial constraints. That's where Chiro Health USA steps in, the solution for your practice. We understand the financial pressures families are under, whether they're insured, on Medicare, or paying out of pocket for treatment. By offering discounts on care, you can ensure that your patients can still afford the treatment they need. At Chiro Health USA, we're committed to making sure no family has to sacrifice their health due to financial hardship. We'll work with you to create a game plan that keeps your waiting room full and your practice thriving. And here's the best part. Offering affordable care not only benefits your patients, but also positively impacts your bottom line. So why wait? Join Chiro Health USA today and join the ranks of the most successful practices. Because when you put your patients first, everyone wins.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the KC CHIROpulse Podcast. We are talking today, we're exploring this whole idea of what does it feel like to have an empty schedule? And before the break, I suggested real quickly, go look at your schedule. How far out can you see? And think about this from a business standpoint. If you can only see patients on the books for the next few days or even a couple of weeks, what is your revenue going to look like in a month, 2 months, 3 months? How do you predict that cash flow? And so there's a whole bunch of things to think about here. But I think what we need to explore is what's the cause of an empty schedule?
Yeah, I'd say you've got one of two things. I think you have lack of treatment plans being given either by the doc and not explaining to the patient well enough what those treatment plans look like, or you have treatment plans, but you have employees or staff that aren't taking those treatment plans and doing something with them. That means scheduling them.
Yes.
You have, one of two problems there.
Yeah, and we hear those things and all points in between from doctors all the time. Some doctors are really good about making the recommendations to the patients, but they never share the information with the staff. So the patient gets up to the front desk and the comment is always, what'd the doctor tell you? When does he want to see you back?
Yeah. So to me, that's just being not prepared for your day. So
Exactly. Which is funny. You brought that up because we're just studying that in one of our masterminds here recently.
yeah, I think being prepared for your day is huge. Do you spend the time to talk to your employees in the morning about what is it that we need to get done today? What's on the schedule? How are we going to handle those people when they come in? What communication are we going to use? What are those things that help us succeed in our day? And if we're not having those conversations, we're leaving it to chance.
Yeah, we don't want to leave anything to chance in business ever. We want to try, you can, not that you can control everything, but we want to try to control as much of the business as we can. And doggone it, scheduling is one of the places you have control.
It is. And there's good news. There's a way around it. We avoid those questions like, when did the doctor tell you to come back? Because the patient's never going to tell you the full story, number one. So as an
Especially
employee,
early on in care, they don't remember.
if as an employee, you're relying on getting your information from the patients that are coming up, you leave yourself in a position of only being able to schedule one visit at a time. And that's never going to be enough if we're looking to fill our schedule, number one. Number two, to be able to look out at any length of time to be able to predict what's the practice going to be able to do.
Right.
Well, there's plenty of things that come in there, but the best thing you can do is advance multiple schedule your patients. It's give them a schedule, let them understand what they're supposed to be doing, and don't rely on them to either tell you or you to say, when would you like to come back? Eek, that's like nails on a chalkboard for me. That's one of the biggest mistakes I see offices doing. One of the biggest.
But Marissa, hold the bucket right there. You're telling me, I know the answer to this, but you're telling me that patients will actually schedule out their treatment plan?
Oh my goodness. I always find this question hilarious because it's born out of not spending the time to train on these things, one, but it's also born out of, I've always done it this way and I don't want to do it any other way. And so I'm just going to tell you that patients won't do it. But in reality, patients will really follow our lead if we give them the right verbiage and we explain to them and we talk to them with transparency. So I think it's important to note that I never had an issue with patient scheduling, minus, I will say I had 2 or 3 patients that never would schedule out because they wanted to talk to. And so if they were scheduled out, they didn't have a major reason to stop at the front desk. And so I found that those were the couple patients that didn't have a lot of people in their lives and they were older and they really valued just visiting.
Sure.
Yes, you may have a few patients like that and that's okay. But
Well, and those patients were the ones that always came in more often than what we would try to schedule them anyway.
absolutely, absolutely. So I think there's a thing there that you have to understand who your patients are and those kind of things. But for your working class of patients, I would say for the most part, they like to know and be able to schedule around things, right? So it's a value to them to be able to get put on your schedules. I had a lot of our patients scheduled a year at a time. I only had to talk to them one time a year about their schedule. That didn't mean that I wasn't building the relationship with them all the other times that I visited with them, but I wasn't stuck just doing a task with them.
Okay, I think you just blew everybody's mind out there. I can hear the cars driving down the highway listening to the podcast and their heads exploding. You scheduled our patients out for the entire year.
Yeah, and we're talking.
Now, I want yeah, hold on. I want to clarify that because I don't want people to think my acute care plans were a year long.
Yeah.
Or it's,
No,
my acute care plans were traditional 12 visits, 18, whatever the patient needed. But we would also schedule all their maintenance care. And our maintenance care patients weren't once a month. They weren't every 6 weeks. They were every 1 to 2, maybe 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And they would schedule out for the entire year. And I hear doctors say this all the time. I have certain patients who don't want to schedule. I don't disagree that you'll have a few.
sure.
But think about it, docs. Who doesn't put things on their calendar, especially if they're of regular occurrence?
I prefer if I go to my massage therapist, if I go to my hairdresser, I'd rather them just schedule me out for the year. I know that I go
Yeah.
every 6 weeks to get my hair trimmed, like clockwork. I prefer that just to be a given. I don't want to sit there every single time and spend the time right there going, okay, yeah, let me count 5 weeks. Yep, that's where I want to be. I'd rather her just say, hey, I notice you come in every 5 weeks. Let's just go ahead and save that spot for you. Great, because I like a specific time on a Friday. I know exactly when I want to be on their schedule.
Yep.
So I prefer them to just say, hey, I noticed that this is your time.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
I want it to be my time. So I think it's important to explore that option in your practice for many purposes. One, for being able to predict the future of your practice and not be stuck in the 30-day cycle. I think that's another factor that we fall
Right. You
into
start over.
every single month, and I've never understood that.
No, it
Why?
makes no sense.
It makes no sense, right? So you can schedule staff that are listening, you can schedule beyond 30 days. It's okay. And I feel like that's always been a trip up in this profession is only scheduling within that 30-day window. And
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
I think that's something that we can avoid.
So we need to take another break, but when we come back, I want to talk a little bit about how we create that mind shift, if you will,
Mhm.
not only in the practice, but with our patients as well. So we're talking about what does it feel like if you have an empty schedule? It doesn't feel good, as we've already explored. And we talked about a few of the reasons why. So when we come back, we're going to talk about this further. So hang in there. We'll be right back.
Pat's Chiropractic Consultants, your partner in chiropractic success. We are dedicated with one-on-one guidance to bring you all your practice management needs. Let's supercharge your practice. Give us a call today.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the KC CHIROpulse Podcast. We are talking about having an empty schedule and how to avoid how that feels, because it does not feel good. Marisa, we've talked a little bit about how that happens, and so much of it goes back to communication strategies.
Yeah.
And when we're talking about strategies, in order to put good strategies in place, we first have to plan, then we have to train, then we have to rehearse and make it a habit. So it's a 4-step process.
Sure.
And so you can't just walk in one day, docs, and tell your staff, hey, I want all my patients scheduled out for the entire year. It won't happen. You've got to have the right communication strategies. So let's just walk through some of that. Number one, doctors, when you are making recommendations for patients, how are you going to communicate that to your staff?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know,
You've
But
got to find out whether it's on paper, if it's on dry erase, if it's
right, how's it going to happen in your practice?
in your notes, is it in a
Is it a chat box?
yeah, where is it out? How do you communicate? That's number one.
Yeah. And then what is the staff going to do with that? What's going to be their communication process? There may have to be some internal communication with staff about scheduling. Maybe you have patients who get a lot of therapy, and your therapy department needs to be involved in the scheduling as well as the front desk people. So we need coordinated communication there. And then how's the staff going to communicate it to the patient and do it in a way that's not only efficient, but the patient understands the value of it? That's one of the most important parts.
Absolutely. The value for the patient is it's their time, it's their space. We have reserved this for them. And the value for them is time saving. They don't have to spend all of their time at the front desk just scheduling an appointment. It's going to be efficient for them because now the visits are on the schedule. And guess what? They come in, they get adjusted, and they leave. It's quick, it's easy for everyone, including the practice.
Yep. And one of the biggest misconceptions, you just made me think of this, one of the biggest misconceptions about advanced scheduling is staff gets it in their mind that it takes too much time.
Oh gosh, don't you think if you added up all the time that you spent scheduling a person each time that they came in, okay, I'm going to guess you're into 3 or 4 minutes every single time. Our software nowadays allows you to advance mobile schedule very easily. Most of
Very
it,
easily.
you can pick the day, what the frequency is, and all of those kind of things, and click a button, and it populates everything. So
Right.
you're talking maybe 5 minutes the first time, but each additional time that they come in, you're talking 3 or 4 minutes. That's a lot of time added up for each individual patient. So
Yep.
instead of spending your entire day only scheduling people or making phone calls to follow up on people who didn't show up. That's the other factor. When they know that they've got that treatment plan, they understand it. The transparency of it is on black and white paper, whether that be emailed to them or printed out or however you get them that schedule. The reality is it's right in front of them. And because they see that frequency and they see what is expected of them, it makes it easier for them to make those appointments.
So you just made a great point. It's a great retention tool, but it also keeps patients engaged in their care plan so that staff isn't have to be having to constantly chase patients down. I I don't understand how you keep track of patients who are supposed to be on a care plan if you don't schedule them, because number one, the patient's not getting a reminder. Number two, they're not on your schedule. So now your schedule could just be this haphazard, crazy, maniacal thing to try to manage in the day. If everybody wants to come in between 4 and 5:30 all of a sudden, and you don't have the schedule spread out so it makes sense, now you may be creating capacity issues around certain parts of the day. And we all have busy times of the day.
Really?
And what about that patient who can only come in between 5 and 5:30? Are we going to make it so that there's 100 patients in the clinic when they try to come in and they get frustrated and quit care because they can't ever get seen in a timely manner? Or is it better to tell that patient, hey, that's a really popular time of day. I'm going to go ahead and reserve that on Tuesday and Thursday every week for the rest of your treatment plan, or every week for the rest of the year, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
How great is that? What a great service is that?
It is a great service, and it makes our patients feel valued in our practice, and they feel special. Not to mention, it's probably a cost saver for the patient. So think about the
Sure.
patient that comes in 2 or 3 times, drops out of care, and then you don't see him again for 3 or 4 months. But, oh gosh, we have to go through a full exam again because you didn't continue with your treatment plan, and we got to see what you have been doing and where you're at and where your body's at. We're starting all over with patients when we do that.
Right.
So it costs patients extra money and time if we aren't careful. So I think it's a cost saver for them as well.
It's huge. And today's patient, they lead busy lives. They
Mhm.
need to put things on their calendar. I think you'll find most of your patients will tell you, I need to put things on my calendar.
Yeah.
My gosh, look at our calendars. I
We-
live by my calendar.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I live by it and have to. And if something doesn't make my calendar, a lot of times it gets missed.
Sure.
So this is not as hard as you think it is. It's really pretty simple. So first off, you have to address your strategy. How are you going to plan your strategy to make
Mhm.
it work? Then you talk to your staff, you develop that plan, you train, you practice it, and then just try it on a few patients. You don't have to try it on everybody day one. Just try it on a couple patients and let you and your staff get the hang of it,
Mhm.
and then go wholesale with everybody.
Absolutely.
And pick a few patients that you know, and your staff will know, docs. Your staff will know exactly who these people are. They're going to be the people that pull their phone out or their paper calendar out every time they're in the clinic. They plan everything. Start with a handful of those and just get used to the idea and see how it feels. And you have to understand your scheduling system in your EHR program as well, because it could really be a valuable tool. Because I know you would tell patients, okay, I'm going to build out your schedule. I'll have it for you next time. You didn't do it in front of the patient. You would spend 3, 4, 5 minutes putting it together. You'd print it out and you'd have it for them next time.
Or I emailed it to them. Or I made sure that their first visit was on before they left the practice, and I emailed it to them before they came back in. And then when they came back in, I reiterated, hey, I put together that full treatment plan. Did you get that? Yep, I got it. Great. It's already on my calendar. Excellent. That's all we needed. That's the way the conversation goes.
It's
You
pretty
know,
simple.
simple. So use your tools for sure, because you do have scheduling options within all of those EHR systems that allow us to do this advanced mobile scheduling very easily. So I definitely do that.
Yeah.
The one
So
that I would say is that here's a little statistics for you. I know Dr. Crucial loves
I love
statistics.
numbers.
Practices that are using the AMS typically report an increase in 30% of repeat visits within 3 months.
Wow.
That's a big stat.
Wow. That's substantial, because 30% more patient visits also probably means 30% or more revenue.
I'm just saying there's benefits.
There's two benefits,
There's
and your
no-
patients, your patients are going to love it. So 30% retention increase, 30% collection increase. The patient retention with this is insane. The time saver that it is for your staff and the level of communication that you create. To me, this is one of the biggest things, that coordinated communication. Now your staff knows what the treatment plans are. So they're helping to support the value of your chiropractic care with the patient.
Absolutely. And that goes back to that initial point that we had is are your employees getting the communication about what the treatment plans look like? Making sure whether it's written down, verbalized in a huddle, whether it's, I've got some people that have laminated sheets that they just dry erase every day on. I
Yep.
don't care how you do it. Just get the information in the appropriate hands so that they're not in a position of having to ask the patient, when do you need to come back? What did they tell you? Because the minute we do that, we look very ill prepared. We look like we don't know what we're doing. And we have no idea why or when the patient should be coming back when we're doing that. So it's staff in a position of looking like they don't understand chiropractic care. And we never want to put them in that position.
Exactly. So the benefits are huge. It's a win for the clinic. It's a win for the patient. It's a win for your staff. There's not a reason to start implementing something like this in your practice. And if you need help with it, this is one of the big things that we do at CATS Consultants is we help doctors implement these kind of strategies so they're efficient, they're effective, and they increase your profitability and really help to streamline your practice. So if you need help, give us a call. Let us talk through how we might be able to help you in your practice.
Absolutely. And don't forget to share and comment. We appreciate you doing that. That helps our viewership grow so other people can use this information as well.
Absolutely. Marisa, anything else to add?
No, I think that's it.
Okay, very good. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning into the KC CHIROpulse Podcast. I've been talking all day. Brought to you by CATS Consultants as well as Chiro Health USA. We appreciate all of you listening out there. We'll see you next time.